So today we're going to talk a little bit about risky play. Last week we had a really good talk about our first memories of play. And most people, when you think about your first memory, the happiest place you've been, where you were playing and having a great time, most people, theirs is outside and not doing anything that was they were supposed to be doing, right? You were told, here's a shovel, go dig that hole, kind of thing. It was like catching frogs and swimming, building a fort. And often to think about is, where were the parents, where were the adults in these situations? They were normally not there, right? So in the last 30 years, we've seen a huge change in parents feeling comfortable with allowing their children unstructured free time outside. And now it's become so rare that we're seeing the adverse effects of that, which is children are being so structured that they don't know how to play individually, they don't know how to engage in free play on their own, which is a problem because then they don't have confidence, they're lacking in confidence, they're lacking in a lot of fine motor, muscle development that happens, gross motor as well, from playing how we want to. Because when in a phys ed class, we're telling kids how they need to play in the phys ed class. You're playing with a ball, you're playing hockey. But in a phys ed, in a gymnasium, is very different than being outside because we have rough surfaces, we've got weather conditions that change, we've got hazards, we've got so many things that are happening in our brains that we have to figure out and stimulate us in different ways. So it's really completely separate to do something inside as opposed to doing it outside. So risky play is play that a child engages with that maybe parents would deem unsafe, right? So I really like your idea of like risky play would be help here, but in a playground it would be a little bit different. Playgrounds are actually some of the riskiest places in the world because it is not children. Plastic is not a natural element. Metal outside is not a natural element. That's not something that we're used to engaging with. That's not how our bodies are built to climb on and do things like that. And in Europe, they've actually changed playgrounds so that they are no longer, they actually have high risk, and they're making slides that have a crazy incline made of wood so that kids will take risks, because on playgrounds, it's so unnatural that kids take unsafe risk. So they jump from slides, they jump from the very tall towers, and they break legs. They break femurs, which is one of the hardest bones to break in your body. They break arms. I have a nephew that broke his arm playing on a swing on a playground, right? Which is like, children aren't supposed to break their arms from playing on a swing, but because the amount of risk and the things that we've been exposing them to for so long has been so structured and in one kind of box. So in Europe, they're changing it and making them more risky to try and counteract all of the children that are going to hospital for all of these preventable injuries, seriously preventable injuries. So risky play is any type of play that an adult would say, there are some safety things that I'd like to add to this. So climbing trees is a big one. Swimming is a huge one. Playing around ice, huge. Using tools, huge, right? Using sticks, playing with sticks is considered risky play because sticks can poke you, you can be hit by a stick. There's all sorts of things that go along with it. So what I do, or what I've been taught to do is for land-based learning, is that we try to look at the risky play and we try to mitigate the risks to the children. So for instance, when we're climbing trees, well, we're going to talk about if we have a kid that really is engaged in climbing trees. Climbing trees is awesome. We want to find an appropriate tree for them to climb, right? We talk about the kind of like the framework, like, you know, we don't want to climb a tree that's too small. We want to climb a tree that's large, that's going to hold our bodies. And then how do we climb trees? I know what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, right? And so when kids are climbing trees, we encourage them, hey, like, how far are you going? Do you know how to get down? And you have that conversation while they're doing it, instead of being like, no climbing trees, or I'm gonna do it for you. Because there's a difference between them engaging in play and us doing it for them.
Like
There is no
climb
learning.
dead trees because they won't be as strong.
There's no learning when we do it for them, because they're not able to move their bodies with it. So that's something that's really important with risky play, is remembering that when we're building fires, it's not me building the fire. They're learning to build the fire so that then they can build the risk. They're building confidence, self-esteem, and learning how to put something together, which is really essential. Another part of risky play is we always do experience risk-benefit assessments. So for any sort of risky play, like building fires, climbing trees, we kind of work through why we're doing it. What are the benefits? It's always first to risky play. What is the benefit? As opposed to what are the risks, right? Because if a child wants to engage in something, it's our job to find the ways to make that happen for them and mitigate the risks to them. So yeah, so does anyone have anything that they feel really uncomfortable with when I say, like, I'm going to take let's say, for instance, I'm going to take a group of kids onto the ice in front of Marysville. Does anyone have any thoughts that come up, any feelings?
A lot of this seems unnatural to me because my parents are kind of like...
Risk averse?
Yes, very risk averse.
Yes. Yep. And that's a whole group of our society is risk averse, and it is becoming more risk averse especially because of the pandemic.
I mean, my parents would never ever like be okay if I told them, hey, I'd let him build a fire by himself.
Right.
Yeah, they would.
But how do we learn to build fires by ourselves?
They would argue that he's not old enough.
Did you know that most Indigenous families, the children learn to use tools, use knives, build fires by the age of 5? My son Theoden knows how to build a fire and knows how to use a knife, and he's never cut himself and never burned himself. Because we talk about what are the risks, we learn about it, and we discuss it.
You think this is enough?
And it's really hard to build a fire.
You think
Like,
this is enough?
it's a skill. And so the whole idea of not allowing them to do something because of an age isn't really fair, because people have been living on this land for a millennia and have to learn the skills to keep yourself warm, to find food, to, enjoy this natural space. And we've become so disconnected from it that now we have kiddos that don't have the fine motor skills to hold a knife or to walk on uneven ground because they've never been exposed to it. I have a hard time when people are like, oh, at this age is when you're supposed to teach them how to do something. But kids, if they're interested in something, that is the best time to teach them how to do something if they want to do it. Different things that aren't in a classroom supports you to do things that you don't feel as confident doing in a classroom. So building the confidence here to do something like build fires then would stem to, in a classroom situation, trying something new that seems scary and hard. Right? So the crossover is crazy. So the more that we can build confidence for them, the more that we can build confidence with families, the better, the stronger our community will be. Because we're allowing kids to choose and do what they need to do. Because they know what they need to do. They know what they want to do. But how do we provide that for them in a safe way? What would you say? Low, medium, high?
I'd say because of fire, it seems high.
High. Yeah, absolutely. High. Fire, danger, right? Burning ourselves, burning a forest, harming property, something along those lines. And what would be a control measure? So David said, where are you doing it? Where are you having it? Then change our level of risk. Not to say that something couldn't happen. Of course, anything can happen always, right? We are humans. We live in this world. Anything can happen. And they're saying that nothing is going to be risky is not a valid thing. You can never take off every single risk from a situation because there's going to be risks in anything that you do. Driving a car is one of the riskiest things anyone can do ever. With children, without children, it doesn't matter. Driving car is the riskiest thing there is. So just how do we put some control measures to encourage the risky play along, and then bring the risks down a little bit. Axes, cutting wood, right? How do we allow those things? Those are maybe the things that you do in your daily lives, cutting wood, cooking, that sort of thing, that you can encourage your children to come in and do that with you, right? And how do you have the control measures for that? So something just to keep into your back of your head. I know I said a lot of things, and I'm sorry, but risky play is like a very, it's an essential thing, and the more research that's coming out is just proving that we need more risky play for children. In Alberta, which is the province that I came from, where I taught in, they added risky play as an essential teaching requirement. So it is in the new curriculum that children need to be exposed to risky play every day outside. Being added, and in European countries, it's been there forever. And most schools have forest schools, or they have forest days where the kids are outside for the entire day. Almost every school in the European countries. Yeah. So we're behind. And how do we push? How do we push? How do we make these changes? Because that's really what we need, to make those changes for our kiddos, so that they can have the opportunities that we all have, right?